Hello and welcome everyone to EO Member Stories. My name is Faizan Sayed. I am the Member Experience Director of the Mepa region, and today I have someone from Cape Town. She's been a member for 6 years. She has 3 kids. She's in a really cool business of scouting locations in South Africa. And she just started a cookie business in COVID. Her name is Julia. How are you, Julia?
Hey, Faizan, good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on, Julia. Now, you've been a very busy body over the years. You've built a business that is a. Tell me more about this business. I mean, it sounds very interesting.
Uh, like any business, I think it often sounds more glamorous than it is, but we do we provide locations in the film industry for shoots, film and
Uh-huh.
photographic shoots throughout South Africa. So we do have
Wow.
famous people in our location shooting, which is pretty
Wow.
cool.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
it is fun. I've been running that part of the business for 22 years, and
22 years.
yeah, and then more recently we started up a couple of other divisions. We do high-end villa rentals, which actually was an offshoot of actors wanting to come to this country, staying for 2 or 3 months, want to bring their families because they're shooting a movie and want to stay in a
Nice.
private, very secluded villa. So that's
Okay.
kind of where that was born.
Right.
And then more recently, with an EO member, I started up a residential property sales division.
Very
So
nice.
thanks to EO, yeah, I
Yeah.
met my partner through EO, and he was in commercial property, wanted to start a residential arm of the business. I'd always wanted to, hadn't found the right person, and so
Yeah.
we started that a year ago.
Amazing. So you basically know all the best places to visit in South Africa. You have access to the best homes to live in South Africa. And if while we're doing all of that, we have some money to park aside, you'll help us invest that money too. Sounds like a pretty good gig.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Amazing. And in COVID, I can imagine that this business, that is a locations business, must have gotten hit hard.
We did. Like travel, we had to pretty much shut down. But amazingly, the South African industry kind of pulled together and appealed to government to open us up in level 4. So, which was pretty early on. So we had very, very strict protocols in terms of shooting in people's homes. A lot of them didn't want us to shoot in their homes. But
Understandably so.
yeah, luckily we have quite a big local following in terms of our business, local shoots. So obviously clients, because the majority of our business is traditionally international. People coming to Cape Town. So that came to a complete halt. But we did have the local business that kept the wolves from the door, so to speak. But people were in hazmat suits, and
Yeah.
the protocols were hectic. We had to spray down the houses after everybody had left. It was just crazy, but we did manage to do it.
And you managed to do it. And at the same time, you were talking about a cookie business that also started off during COVID.
So this is one of my best stories, because you know how we do things on the side, and sometimes our businesses get a little bit boring when you've been running them for 22 years. And we had this amazing woman who was cooking for us in our office, and we identified she was just an amazing cook. And then she started making cookies on the side, and we thought, these would be really cool just to deliver to set, to our clients on set. So when we go and visit them, we took the cookies. And they were like, oh, these are incredible. We need to get more of them. And I said to her, we call her Mama Bongi. I said, Mama, we need to make these cookies. We need to sort of get a business going here for you.
Right.
Being a classic entrepreneur, I love helping other people to sort of build themselves up. She was so excited. So we started. In fact, we started just a bit before COVID, but it was kind of trickling along a bit. And I was obviously stretched for time trying to market this business. But COVID hit, and I suddenly had a whole lot more time. And fortuitously, we ran out of packaging.
Okay.
And so a friend of mine had this really organic, sort of beautiful brown bag packaging. She's in the trade. She said, I've got this box at home. Here's the box. You can have it. I was handwriting, made by Mama Bungi, on the front of the packets. Mama and I were the only people on the streets, like doing work, and I became the delivery person. I got a special permit because I was delivering food, to drive around set and delivering cookies. It felt quite surreal because I was like one of the few cars on the roads. But anyway, it took off. It really took off. And whether it was something that was completely homemade, whether people were eating more cookies during lockdown, I don't know.
Yeah.
But in fact, another thanks to EO's story, Sean Gomes, who you probably know, he's in the retail council. He owns Wellness Warehouse, and so I approached Wellness and said, "Look, we want to make a vegan cookie." And a few trials back and forth. Wellness took it on. We now distributed countrywide through the Wellness Warehouses for this cookie. Yeah, I mean, she's doing well over $1 million a year in cookies.
That's amazing. Wow, what a story. So in the middle of COVID, you actually helped someone and you yourself got involved in launching a brand new business.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So when is Mama Bongi joining EO? That's the next question.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a funny story about that, which I think quite a few entrepreneurs will relate to. I was like so excited about this business, and Mama's quite a big older woman, and she was hand mixing all this stuff, and I was like, Mama, we can do this and we can do that. Right. And you know that old proverb where the businessman goes to the Thailand and he's goes fishing for the day, gets with his big cruiser and he goes fishing for the day, and he's chatting to the fisherman, and the fisherman says, I've got this great lifestyle. And he says, yeah, but you can get more boats, and I can teach you. You can teach other guys how to fish, and and eventually at the end of the day, the fisherman says, well, what? So that I can just fish for the day and get my fish.
Yeah.
And I had a real moment where I was doing that with Mama, and she was getting more and more resistant to the growth, and she was having to work really hard. And I had to really take stock and think, hold on, Julia, like what's going on here? There was a bit of a disconnect. So I really did some soul searching for a few weeks, sat down with her and said, like, what is our why? Why are we doing this? What do you want?
Right.
And it was about her supporting her kids. And then I started talking about the other people we're employing and us and them supporting their people. And then we got down to our why, which is really about making a difference in people's lives. And it wasn't about making cookies. I mean, it's a great cookie, but it's not about cookies. And she totally got it. It was like a light came on. And it just totally transformed our relationship. We now employ quite a few people. We have an effect on their families. And she is so inspired by what we're doing. So yeah, it was a fun story. It's the we all hopefully we go through ebbs and flows on our businesses, but it's the one thing that I do that I really get excited about.
That's amazing.
And we do a lot of radio interviews with her, and she's such a character, so people just love her.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so good to hear. And she's on radio now too. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, she's on radio. She's been on TV. She's been all over.
So she's on radio and she's on TV as well, huh?
Yeah, she's got the biggest smile and the biggest character. So one of the other funny things is because I had this time during COVID and I kept asking my daughter, how do I use Instagram? Like, I need to start an Instagram page. She's like, Mom, you've actually got to get with the program. I was like, okay, best I do this. So I did an Instagram course. Obviously, when you've got the time, you're like, okay, I need to learn Instagram. So I started a page for her, and within no time, some big influencers picked up on her and this wonderful story. Right. So she's got nearly 10,000 followers now on Instagram. And obviously a lot of the foodies and the vegan community, because we're doing a vegan cookie, have picked up on it, and they invite her to TV shows and radio shows. Right. People love a good story. It's a heartfelt story. She's a big African mama with a big smile. And so she's easy to love. She's easy to love, yeah.
Amazing. She's like that. That's a story that I think will actually build a brand in the long term, because people will just want to tell that story and consume the product associated with that.
Yeah, and what I learned as well is that, I mean, marketing 101, you know this well.
Right.
People they want to relate to a brand. Correct. They want to relate to the humans behind the brand, and Correct. They want to relate to the story. And
absolutely right.
A little bit of the story on the back of the packaging, and people just love it. They just buy it because they love her and they love the story.
Yeah.
Hopefully they have a cookie too.
I mean, anyone can sell a cookie, but very few companies sell a feeling when you bite into the cookie, right? And so you want that feeling every time. It's not just the wheat and the sugar and the chocolate chips, but it's that feeling of like, oh, I just contributed to some amazing thing. And it's not just the sugar that's giving me the rush, but it's that entire emotion that goes with it as well.
Completely.
So you were talking about this great story that, was a great achievement in the middle of COVID. But over the last, I'd want to say it's been a year or less than a year, you've been dealing with a challenge that has forced you to relearn different parts of your life and how to navigate through different parts of your life. Walk me through what happened and what that's led to with you.
Actually, yeah, just after I saw you and we were in Dubai, I went to Barcelona to visit my older daughter and her family and my 2 grandchildren they moved there a year ago. Mm-hmm. And the second day there, I just slipped down a simple bank and put my hand out on the tar at the bottom to break my fall, and had a compound fracture. So, I mean, you can see I'm still taped up. The bone popped through the side of my wrist. Was pretty ugly, but ended up with, long story, but I had my 4th operation is next week. And
wow, 4 operations.
Been nearly 7 months of not being able to use my right hand, and I'm right-handed.
Wow.
Yeah. And you listen to amazing stories of what people have overcome, but I suppose, and, you tend to sort of think, well, mine isn't that big or whatever, but I suppose for each of us, it's real as to what we're going through each day. And so I've had some pretty rough days.
Right.
Where being like a serious doer, I'm like, how am I going to, how can I do that? I can't even cut my food. I can't put a fork into my mouth. I can't do the simplest things. But I must say what I try and do, and luckily I'm actually quite a positive person, is really look at what I've learned. Mm-hmm. And what got me through, I've had some dark days, but what's got me through is like, I did meditate before, but I've been much better at my meditation. In fact, I signed up to Mind Valley through the EO discount.
Nice. Yep.
And Silver Method. So I've done that a lot more, done a lot of soul searching, and also what do I want in my life? It really makes you think about what do you really want when you've got to forced to slow down. I mean, I'm the most basic things, like you want to cut a piece of bread or make a piece of toast, I have to ask someone to do it for me. Mm-hmm. Very humbling and very hard for most of us as entrepreneurs are complete doers. Like we just go out and do it, and we don't have to ask anybody to help us. So that's been a big journey for me. But I kind of, as I said, want to rejoice in the positives. Like I learned to write with my left hand. Sorry, because I'm,
right.
My jokes that, on the shopping list, the writing went from a grade 5 to a grade 8. It like continuously got better. I see we have a different person in the house now. It's But also other skills, like I voice activate all my emails now, which, initially was a bit frustrating, but once you learn how to do it, it's actually incredibly efficient. It's way better than my typing ever was. Wow. So, I'm trying to rejoice in the new skills, and they say it's very good for your brain to learn these
new things.
Totally. I mean, I may still have to go to occupational therapy to actually switch the brain neuron to being left-handed. I've investigated it, but right. I'm just waiting for the next surgery to see what the total outcome is, because it's obviously a pathway thing that you actually have to use your other hand.
Wow, that's quite a journey. That's quite a journey. For someone who went delivering cookies, driving door to door, delivering cookies in the middle of COVID, sort of not being able to use their right hand, I can't even imagine how much of a challenge it must be. But, look at the bright side. You've come out ambidextrous, and you are now digitally savvy enough to compete with 10-year-olds. So I think you're on the right track.
And I've got Instagram.
and you took an Instagram course. So I think, what, maybe this is, putting you, this is future-proofing you.
Exactly.
And so in this entire journey, I mean, we've talked about, sort of your business and how you expanded into multiple things. We've talked about the cookies and how that was a passion project that grew into a life of its own. We've talked about this, the challenge that you've just been through over the last 6-8 months. How has EO played a role along this journey for you? You've been a member for 6 years in Cape Town, and you've been on the path of leadership. You were a chapter president. You've spent time on the regional council. How has the EO journey been, and how has it supported you in all of this?
I think the biggest thing is that when you're a lonely entrepreneur, well, A, obviously it's lonely, but B, you kind of think, can I do it? Or I think a lot of it's stuff I thought I couldn't do it. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't big enough. I wasn't wealthy enough. Or, there's always a reason.
Right.
And I met so many fellow entrepreneurs who had done amazing things that I found so inspiring that I thought, well, of course I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And I embarked on projects like I'm about to finish my first spec build on I didn't mention that part of my business. I've just built a new house, which is I was going to do a 4-house development, which COVID did stop.
Mm-hmm.
But we then changed our track a little bit, and I've now just finished the first house, which I built with my own bat, and we're going to put it on the market within the next month.
Mm-hmm.
That project alone required quite a lot of capital input from myself, which I would never have done without the EO. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I started to think in much bigger numbers,
mm-hmm.
and that it was possible, and that there was a way to leverage what I was doing with the banks, to do interest roll-up, to do a whole lot of new things, which I honestly don't believe I would have done before EO. And that was just about chatting to people who've done incredible things and just finding it so inspiring and thinking, well, I am as smart as them. I may not be as wealthy as them, but I can make this work. So I really thank EO for that. I was initially voluntold into EO and then voluntold into various leadership positions,
right?
As one does. But the growth has just been phenomenal. I must say my presidency year was phenomenal. I just got to meet people like yourself and just incredible people. I would encourage anybody to follow that leadership path, because you're just your world just gets broadened into what are people doing out there, and they're just so fascinating and amazing and inspiring. And every time I come away from an event, or I'm just so pumped up. So I think I would not be the mother, the business person, the friend, the wife that I am today without EO. Definitely. It's not even it's like you pay your school fees, it's like you don't question that fee. You just it's done.
It's just done. It's done. And I mean, even in that, you were mentioning earlier, you've been involved with an initiative, which is the Women of EO, or the My EO Women. It's, EO always talks about diversity in different ways. And they've, for years that I've been a member, there's always chatter about increasing the number of women that join EO. Is there anything about your entrepreneurial journey or within EO as a woman that, sort of was highlighted or was a benefit, or, was something that you definitely want to sort of say, hey, you know what, I got this out of it, which I would not have gotten otherwise?
I think initially it was a bit tough because I was the only female in my forum, and it takes a little bit of strength as a woman to sit in a group of men and be super vulnerable and go to the 5%. I certainly think that when I did it, it did open up the space for them to do the same. But it was definitely better once we had 2 women. And I think, like attracts like, no matter how we present it. So one of my strategic, kind of plans when I got into the presidency was to I brought 50% of my board were women. And I think also having a membership chair as a woman, who was Mary, who you also know, was also super strategic, because we were able to attract more women. And we're quite proud of the fact that I think we're the second highest, chapter in the region to have, I think we've got 20 odd women now.
Correct.
So, and I do think having these events like we're planning at the end of October for all the women, and to make them feel special and included and create connection, is vital. And I do believe the more we do that, the more we can attract, more women, because they just hear about these incredible, connections that we have. And every time we've got together, we just, you walk away feeling inspired, and that you're going to go and tell your friend about it who's maybe got a business. So I think it's super important.
Interesting. And for someone who never sits still, from the sound of it, do we end up seeing you on the path of leadership into the region and maybe into global someday?
Global.
Because we need representation. That's the other thing. I just had a chat with Miranda from Tanzania. And, the one thing she kept mentioning, and she's the global learning chair or whatever the word is. They're doing away with committees and stuff. And the one thing she kept saying is that we need more women in global, and we need more people from Mepa in global. And that is, I think, the one area that, you know what, someone like you should step into.
Well, I take that as a big compliment, thanks. But when I was chatting to Mark, who's now the global chair, when we were at Ignite, you know, and we were stuck on the bus together, which was awesome because I got him captive to, and you hear about how much time it takes. I can see why it's challenging for people, but when on the flip side of that, you know, the traveling that he does and the people that he meets. I mean, you never know. Maybe when I step away a little bit from my business, I can. But yeah, definitely watch the space for Mepa next year. I'll love to be there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you for the time. And for all of those who tuned in, Julia is again the person you want to contact if you want to see cool stuff in South Africa, because she's seen it all. Stay tuned for the next episode of Member Stories, and we will have great stories coming in for you again. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you again, Julia.
Thanks, Faizan.
Okay,
cheers.
Bye-bye.